Growing the wind industry in Sweetwater was the vision of Mayor Greg Wortham.
Here, there were some of the largest projects in the world, and no one in the region seemed to be talking about it. We weren't promoting ourselves to gain the manufacturing jobs.
Just a few years later, Wortham's Texas-sized ambition was realized. Nolan County, where Sweetwater is located, is now the #1 wind market in America, currently producing over 2,500 megawatts of power, enough to power up to 750,000 homes.
Wind has taught some really important lessons. We can come down the cost curve, we can deploy this stuff on scale, but that only happens if there are policy supports for it.
Modern wind technology has not only come a long way from its roots, it has continued to evolve. These turbines soar over 200 feet, or some 20 stories, into the Texas sky. Just installing them is an enormous and expensive undertaking. Kenny's job is to keep them in good working order.
We're in Roscoe, Texas, up top of Mitsubishi 1000A. We're at 220 feet. This is the main shaft of the turbine. Goes here into the gearbox. Has a high-speed shaft in the back that ups the RPMs that goes into the generator where the electricity is produced.
The electricity is then transferred to a substation where it is sent to the power grid.
This wind turbine is basically a robot. It tells itself what direction it needs to be pointed to, when to stop itself, what pitch the blades need to be to get the most generation of electricity.
Even with an established technology like wind, there are still great challenges.
Wind is a tremendously large resource. There is about 60 times more wind energy than we humans use today. But like sun, it's intermittent.
If you're going to use wind for a big part of your electricity supply, you need a way to store that energy for the times when people need it.
One company, General Compression, is developing dispatchable wind power systems that compress air to high pressure, then store it underground. They may unlock the secret of storing wind, but there is another challenge wind faces: transmission. Moving the power from the turbine farms in the Central Plains across hundreds of miles to major urban centers is costly, and the power grid is out of date.
The traditional transmission system is set up for 50 years ago or so, where power plants were close to the loads. The wind is out in remote rural areas of the Great Plains, and so transmission grids have to be designed to service those metropolitan areas.
Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio. Next 7 years, they'll have a lot of it done back to the big cities.
One way to bypass the transmission challenge is small or urban wind projects that generate power for local usage. At this site in New York City, 6 Silvery turbines feed power directly to the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
That's the beauty of small wind. It's used on site. You don't have to worry about transmission.
Paul Glennie is head of AeroVironment's architectural wind project. His ambition is simple: to use the company's expertise in aviation to create a turbine that is sleek and low impact.
Everything we do is about efficiency, performance. And so in all of our businesses, from the unmanned aircraft systems to the efficient energy systems, everything is all about doing more with much less.
Glennie's turbines exploit the flow of wind over the edge of a building.
We found that a building creates a chimney effect. If you've ever stood and put your hand over a cliff, you've felt that upflow of air. Well, that's accelerated wind. If we can leverage that accelerated wind, we can also create more electricity. We place it on these low-profile, low-aspect ratio buildings, such as factories, big-box stores, office buildings. If you know where that accelerated wind flow is coming from, you can actually point the wind turbine into that accelerated wind flow.
Architectural wind turbines feed power directly to the power system of a building. When the customer isn't using power, the wind's energy is sent to the grid.
If you're not using electricity in the building at the time, it will actually turn your meter backwards. And is that going to add cost to the system, or?
No, it should reduce cost, if anything.
Architectural Wind's greatest challenge is bringing its product to scale.
We need consistent, long-term federal policies that will give the market a signal for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years that says we are making a commitment to renewable energy. Then the customer can decide what technologies they want to employ.
The fact that the price of producing energy from wind turbines has been dropping, and the fact that wind is readily available makes it a big part of America's energy future.
Harnessing energy in challenging waters.
We were living literally in survival suits during that time.
Coming up next.
德国家庭万用药第1名，德国百灵油就在德丰健康馆。德国家庭万用药第1名，德国百灵油就在德丰健康馆。